welcome to the Mind Body Alignment Talk. Next to me, and I can talk to you. I love that. And again, Kelly, maybe you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself.
That sounds like a great plan. So my name is Kelly Berry. I'm a functional movement specialist. So that just means that I focus a lot on alignment. I use core integration and breath work, yoga, and Pilates. And it's a bit of a combination, a bit of a soup to pull all those things together to get to greater body awareness.
Great. And I'm Nathalie. Most of you probably know me as Dive into Reiki. I'm a Reiki teacher. I do martial arts, and I'm really bad with movement. So that's not true anymore. I'm learning. So that's why I reach out to Kelly to help me understand movement. And the Facebook Live is not working, but that's okay. So we'll just repost this.
We'll try it next time.
We'll try next time better. So what we wanted to have here is just a chat, because Kelly and I have been working and exchanging for the last few months a lot. We've known each other for close to over 2 years.
I know, it's hard to believe and imagine.
But the lockdown gave us a gift of really like working together and exchanging knowledge on my side about probably awareness, energetic awareness, and Reiki on your side, like body awareness and movement. So that's what we wanted to share a little bit today. So I would love to ask maybe you, what was the biggest learning that you've had about Reiki? Because you're a Reiki practitioner, but also you're involving it into your body practice as well. What has been one of the biggest aha that you had?
Well, actually, talking about us knowing each other for 2 years, it makes me think of probably like the first time I met you, I think was at Yes Studio, and I came to your Reiki and meditation class and was looking to integrate and deepen my meditation practice. You know, I come from more of a kind of like power and vinyasa, and like I still had that element of me, like that core and building that heat, but was like seeking to find like more grounding and integration in terms of like being able to really be like in my body and also like in the lower register of my body, because I'm definitely like, I have a tendency towards that. And I remember like, and I can also think of how much my practice has grown and evolved in knowing you and having you reflect a lot of learning back to me, and just in terms of an accessibility of it being okay to be in that discomfort and not have all the answers, and to settle a little bit. I think that I don't want to go too off topic, but well, I guess we're just talking about meditation and being in the body, right? But I think that there is this fallacy, and one that maybe I held for a long time before I came into a deeper part of my practice, of that when we sit down to meditate, we just have to sit down and we're so serious and our mind is clear and all these sorts of things. And you really opened the door and created an awareness in me that I can recognize what's going on, that all that buzziness can be there, but that if I can integrate a lot of the things that made sense to me, of like being able to like breathe and like feel myself in like the center like part of my body and the center register. And I want you to talk about it too, but integrating that understanding of like the hara and like what that means to like be in more anatomical like knowledge, to be in your pelvis, and to be able to like integrate like the core, and like not just the alignment and thinking like of creating the open channel for the breath, but allowing yourself to be both in your bones and in your grounding and in your power, in order to get to this other state of greater awareness. And I always have loved that. I mean, we've had some powerful meditations, both in group settings and one-on-one. Like, you know, I've been flying in a vortex with you. I've like sobbed and cried and seen the beauty in the world. And like, I laugh at myself a little bit because it's, I never really understood that. Like, you know, I'd heard kind of what that experience would sound like or feel like, but to be able to feel it in your body is something totally different. And for those that are maybe listening that have not had a powerful meditation experience like that, I think that your way in which you offer has always been very accessible, because it's like you can, and that's also makes sense to me in how I work with my body, is like you can come however you are you're just allowing and recognizing, and like, what do you notice? And I found that in our work together, both in sharing our experiences and then working together. And so those of you that probably don't know, we've been having now in the times of COVID, I feel like that's one happy outcome, is that we've been able to like meet regularly and have, conversations and share our experiences and learning. And I've been learning how to deepen my Reiki meditation practice with you, Nathalie, and sharing pieces that make sense to me, and like being able to like translate them back in terms of like what that makes sense in the body. And it's been so powerful, one, for me to acknowledge and recognize, and this is the whole genesis for this talk, right? So thank you for organizing us, is understanding that both in a logical and an esoteric level, and also in a physical and a more ethereal level. And I think it's allowed me, I can say, to really integrate something that felt a little bit more in theory, in terms of like the yin and the yang, and like how this balance is needed, and this duality, and this, you talk a lot about that in practice, of like this duality and this non-duality, and like understanding yourself, and then understanding like that oneness, and being able to connect, to use different language, like with divine, and being able to understand how we need both. Like, I mean, we're in this human incarnation, right? So like we're in our bodies, and in understanding how to use that for a meditation practice, and vice versa.
And I think that for me, it's a point I would love to make. I love that you said that, because a lot of us, I think, either we have a Pilates yoga practice that is very body-based, and it's not really, it doesn't have a lot of energetic awareness or spiritual awareness, or whatever you want to call it, just plain awareness. And then when we go to extreme of Reiki and meditation, it's all very outer body, right? It's like I'm channeling energy. I'm like in space and oneness, but I'm not in my body. And if you think about it, spiritual practice needs to be embodied to really be lived. Trauma lives in the body, anger, emotions live in the body. So we're always outside, and we're really doing our spiritual work. So for me, what I love about our work is that we're bringing those two together. And then you said the word tension, and I love that. So again, it's that tension between the mind and the body, but also for me, you were teaching me, I have trouble with movement, and how actually understanding tension in the body and enjoying it, and that little point in between softness and tension is where you want to go, is great. And that's exactly the same with Reiki, right? You want to be between worlds. You want to have a balance of, again, that spiritual world and that everyday life. You don't want a spiritual life that is completely useless when you go to the office or the subway, right? And then you go like a crazy person. Right. And the other thing I love is, again, when we start aligning mind and body, we also start understanding, and as you said, in the tension, the balance is in between, right? So you create that, you always have this image of this cord that you tense.
Yes.
In the words. So when you have, it's in between. So a lot of us, again, both, in spirituality and life, we want only the good things. We don't want the bad things. So if we're angry, or Reiki practice is not working, the yoga is not relaxing us, or meditation is crap.
Mm-hmm.
In Reiki, there is, again, this is Namaste. This prayer position is very common in every spiritual thing. But in Japan, in Reiki especially, means bringing opposites together, right?
I always loved that.
And I love that, because it's like your dark side and your light side. And where is balance in accepting both of them? So again, when we've been working together, I love how you make me feel the tension between my body and finding my balance. So people know I approach Kelly because I do martial arts. I really suck at it. I'm not grounded. I'm not really balanced. And I'm better, but I am not, let's say I'm not like a natural at it, right? And what we're learning together is we can create that tension inside the body as well, right? So by creating the right tension with, for example, a knee moving forward, a heel going backwards, I can find that grounding. And this is the last thing I will add before we move towards you again. A lot of us are scared as hell of grounding, right? Of being in the body, of really entering. But grounding, and you were saying it, when we go in a vortex or we go to this very deep spiritual experience, the reason we can open our minds, and I talk about big minds with capital M, is that we're anchored in our core. So in Reiki is the hara, but the reason I'm being now able to move through my katas is because I finally feel that anchoring of the core, that balance of the core. So that need to really have an anchoring in the body is actually very important for both practices, right?
I'm actually just realizing too that I love when like these things integrate and you kind of see like the full circle of things. But you know, when I just met you, I just moved back to New York, and you know, I was trying to settle and figure out like what am I going to do, what's happening, da, da, da. And I was having trouble with grounding. And I think you said that in the kind way that you just are and do, of that's something that you need to work on, is like you've got all these ideas, you've got all this energy, but like it's and I think, you know, especially for creative types or people that really like want to do and create and be, especially in New York City, because it's just, you know, a host and slew of those types of people, creators. It's tempting to just kind of stay in that realm of ideation, but it's like with anything, right? You need to have like the strong base and the strong foundation to like move from. So, you know, you have helped me so much, tremendously much, to recognize that that's there. And then without judgment to just, oh, I loved what you said to me a few weeks ago, that it was like that it was all in the return, you know, that's the practice, is that. And I think that that's also like a misconception too, is like, oh, once we understand, we become expert meditators, we just hang out on the mountaintop and just like, that's where we are all the time. And it is true that I can get to the mountaintop with a lot more ease. And I'll say for anyone listening, have a meditation session with Nathalie and you'll like, you know, be floating in the vortex in no time. But it's really important to like have like a base and a strong foundation that you can come back to anchor and bring that in a more actionable way, to be able to take the receptivity, the yin, and like be able to like, you know, share it out with that yang. And a lot of what we've been doing with the body integration has been exactly what you've been teaching me, but in the physical form. And one thing that we've been working on is understanding like Tadasana. So like just a grounded mountain pose, actually rooting through the feet and running the channel of energy up through the pelvis, all the way through the crown of the head, and then being able to integrate the lower and the upper part of the body. So like if we think about like the katas, that's what we call them, right? The katas?
Yeah.
Like cutting forward, it's about understanding a relationship between the shoulders and the core, and being able to find a slight coursing of the rib cage without a bearing down, to be able to find that kind of like tautness, that standing tall, the rooting through your feet and reaching all the way through the crown of the head. So being able to feel the balance and that polar opposites without holding on too tight and without like being too collapsed, right? And it's challenging because there's a subtlety in there. It's almost, I feel like it's kind of like a little bit Goldilocks, you know, it's like not too much this, not too much that, and being able to, I think that we've been able to go deeper and on both sides of it, because and that's why we're having this talk. But even every time we talk about it, I feel like I'm learning new things, or I'm processing different things about it, you know, because it's like when you build that foundation, then you can just like kind of like add on to like the nuance and the detail of it.
And I think it's also like, again, a lot of times we leave these practices on the mat or the cushion, but when you're talking about like, how do you learn how to grasp with enough tension, not too much, not too little? Yeah. Again, we practice on the mat, but that is also important to just bring it to your life, right? So I think a lot of times, both Reiki, core, Pilates, the lining work we do, if we do it with more awareness, we start acting like that in life. So we stop grasping so much.
Yeah.
We're understanding better.
Yes.
And going back a little bit towards the work we're doing. So again, it's funny, Reiki is all about connecting with everything else. One thing I found fascinating is when you guide me to connect my muscles, like there is so much connection inside that we have. And then again, we talk about energy and energy healing, and we see it as a channel. But one thing is when you start really placing your awareness in your body and be more internal. For example, we're relaxing a muscle through the breath. And by just being aware of that tension and relaxing it, the energy will flow like a lot freer, right? So yes, in Reiki, we have to let go of anger and worry. but we also have to be more aware of what's happening in our body. So we have to have that connection with our bodies and what's happening, so that we relax and we soften, and then the energy flows with more freedom. And that, I think, has been a beautiful gift. And also becoming more process oriented versus goal oriented. I think a lot of times, both in Reiki and in Pilates or whatever we're doing, it's
Yeah,
like we can achieve this today, right? So how do we switch?
absolutely.
There is always more to learn. How do we keep that beginner's mind and enjoy the process versus like I'm doing a Reiki session, right? Like
That's,
just enjoying being in the space. In your case, you torture me sometimes, right? With the core work. But
I take that as a high compliment.
it's a good torture. I enjoy it. It's like, so sometimes I'm just suffering there, like, ah, and I'm like, okay, can I soften into this and enjoy it and feel the depth of experience there is in movement?
Yeah.
That was such a beautiful discovery. Like every single thing we do can have so much depth if we just place awareness on it, right?
Oh, I would love for you to share, because I think that that's important. Like the Reiki precepts and like the do not anger and the do not worry. Because I can say for myself that that's been really powerful and allowed me to accelerate and integrate my knowledge and understanding of where I can go with a meditation practice. Of I understand it, when I'm doing core work, of like being in the discomfort. And I talk to students a lot about that, of like, I know it's uncomfortable, but what can you soften? Like, what can you breathe into, but still maintain your integrity in the shape and still maintain your stability in the shape? And what you're offering is, it's the same, just maybe the language is slightly different, but it's the same. It's being able to say like, okay, there's something there that feels uncomfortable, but can I just allow it? Like, and it moves through me, and then it doesn't like own me, and that energy is not trapped in the body. And it's that same thing of like balance. It's that awareness, it's the softening, it's the return. So I think for people that don't understand the Reiki precepts, you have a really wonderful way of explaining it in a way that is open and like judgmental. I think that might be helpful.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because when, again, a lot of my Reiki learnings came from doing mistakes, right? So I come from a Western Judeo-Christian upbringing, and the Reiki precepts say, just for today, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, be compassionate to yourself and others. And I'm missing one. I always miss one, but it's okay. So, but at the beginning, I was like, do not anger. So every time I would get angry, I would get like really judgy and guilty and like really stressed out. And then, don't worry, I'm a constant worrier, right? So one thing I learned one day that I had like a big bad breakdown, I just started breathing, do not worry, and I could feel it in my body, right? And as soon as I started feeling it in my body, I could soften it. And you said beautiful
right now, like, do not worry.
So I to it, and then I was able to keep my integrity, right? So I was able to create a space for it and not go crazy with worry. So one thing we do, again, and they're written because they come from Japanese and they understand how to deal with it, right? They have a different way. Because for them, it's to not bear anger. It's not about rejecting anger. It's about like, okay, let me listen to the message, anger, worry, with gratitude, because they're trying to help me. Practice diligently. That's the one I always miss. And it's important.
I forget that one too. I was like, what is the one that we missed? Oh, right.
How do we soften? Because what happens is we resist anger, so we're just adding to the anger. We resist worry, right? So we either numb it or we just actually add to it. And that's a little bit like the kinetic sense, right? Either you lose connection with a muscle that bothers you, or you are hypersensitive. It's very similar to that. So you soften into that anger and worry, and you listen to it with compassion. And then what's happening is your body or your spirit, whether you actually get the sensation, or it just shifts. So the more we soften, and for me, Reiki is a practice of softening, right? We become more open-hearted, more grateful, because we're not. And I feel it's the same with your work. You're being able, because I can soften when I'm meditating, but when I'm moving, it's challenging, right? When I'm moving fast, I'm going to a slow way, it's harder to soften. So having this way of communicating better, understanding better how you can apply this practice I'm really good at doing with my emotions to my muscles, so I can soften also my body and allow the information to flow better, the energy to flow better, for me has been a big gift, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And in your case, it's the opposite. Like, you're good at movement. So stillness, how do you really become still and enjoy the movement in the stillness, right?
Yes. And I will say too, that's, I've always had a lot of generosity and patience for others and holding space in that way, even before, I was, calling myself a teacher. But I've really struggled for that in myself. And, even thinking about like the do not anger, like I'd be like, oh, but I'm angry and I'm frustrated that I'm angry and then it goes down this path, right? And it's the same thing being in the body, like, and I still feel that, like, the more I work and integrate the practice that I have in the core practice and integrate it with a more mindfulness approach in what I'm learning in my work with you, that frustration comes up, but in a different way. And that's why I actually love both meditation and yoga. I guess they're all yoga, they're all spirituality. It's kind of like different ways to get to the same place. But as I get more information, I'm able to go deeper into sensation, into my body. But then I still arrive at something new, and I still run into these roadblocks. And it can change day to day, and it can change year to year in terms of something that I was able to do before, and maybe I'm not able to do in my body today, or something that I don't understand in my body, and I'm frustrated by that. And then, recently, like this past week, I think I've had a little bit more challenge, like moving in the way that I want to move. And I've actually been hearing your voice kind of saying, like, it's in the return, So like when I catch myself doing that, it's like, okay, like that's just happening right now, but it's not a permanent thing, like, and then that understanding and that recognition that that's also the practice too, is that these are feelings and like shifts, and that everything is always like changing, like that Pima Chodron, quote is just like the suffering is created in us trying to hold on and trying to grip. And that it's like actually when we just kind of soften and say, okay, that's there and that's changing. And it is challenging though. Even hearing myself talk about it right now, it's like there's that frustration because it's one of those things that I think sometimes I think hopefully we're doing a good job of describing it, but I think that that's one of those things that's sometimes difficult to understand and to integrate because it is such a subtlety, and it's like that space in between. It's like being able to feel like really grounded and rooted and present and aware and having that strength, but at the same time, like having the ability to let go.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's always tell the story, but my monk, when I was in Japan, he was always telling me I was trying too hard, right? So, and then one day I was relaxed and was funny, like try harder. So we all have to find that point. But again, I think, and you said it many times, the healing is in the return. So if we get distracted in meditation, we don't feel guilty. We just bring back the mind gently.
Yes.
So the more first of all, the more we welcome the mind, the happier we'll be to come back, right? If we say like, you bad mind, it will stay away.
Exactly.
And then when we send a stupid text to the person we're not supposed to send it, we can learn to come back with more compassion and gentleness. And this is a meditation, but it's also again in core practice, like or like for example, there is a lot of pressure for people who practice meditation, Reiki, core work to always be peaceful, right? Even in the middle of a pandemic, we're supposed to be these super sane people, and which is completely unreal because we're freaking humans.
Right.
So also like that guilt again, when we get angry, when we get stressed, like how do we let go of that guilt and we come back to center? If we lost it for an hour or two, like it's okay. How do we bring it compassionately back to center? Because this is what is going to change our life, right?
Yes.
The same with you when you make me do an exercise and I fall flat on my face. Do I just start criticizing myself like I'm useless, or do I come back to my center and try again with a different, and just feeling my body? And it's a beautiful thing because I spent basically the first year of martial arts falling on my face and not even, I was so like engaged in like the negative dialogue. Like
Yes.
now I'm like, I was talking to my sensei yesterday and she's so excited because she says, you're enjoying it, right? Your body. I'm like, oh, because I'm traveling. It's a discovery journey.
Yes. Yeah.
That's another thing I was thinking today. How do we approach more any practice with awareness, but also discovering mind, right? Like, let me feel oh, this is really bad. That moment looks like, just enjoy it. Like, oh, even laughing at yourself, right? And
I'm so glad that you said that. And even though we know these things, it's like, even you saying that, like, I can feel that permission just kind of like wash like through my body a little bit to just, I think that's a, I can say for myself, that's a mindset that I had for a very long time. And I'm still working through it because it still comes up, at the most inconvenient times, this idea of perfection, and that you have to like know something like to an expert level status, like right off of the bat. And if you made a mistake, it's like, oh, why did you do that? But I think we can all say, like, if we all like sit and reflect on it, like, don't you learn much more from the mistakes and from being able to return, like when you get into that sticky situation or challenge, or maybe even just finding a little bit of like comfort and ease and like peace, like when you, because like that's real world stuff, right? Like talking about like, we're not up on the mountain like meditating every day, we're living in the real world. And right now the real world is can sometimes be a scary place, and is a lot of uncertainty, which uncertainty is scary for most people. But the thing is, I've been thinking about this a lot because we have all this time to reflect, but that's actually the one thing that's always constant, right? Even when we think that like we put these structures and systems in place, like, we have a full-time job, or we have a mortgage, or these things that are like set, but all things are always changing. They're always moving. Like, we build these structures and for stability, but what if we could create these structures for stability, like in our lives? And I think that that's what you do with meditation, and hopefully that's what I do with the movement. And I think that the power is in being able to integrate those two, to be able to like show up in the world of like, sometimes I'm going to mess up. Sometimes I'm not going to say the right thing. Sometimes I'm not going to be proud of a decision that I made, but like, I can be proud of like how I choose to handle it, or how I'm. And it's also the other thing that I'll say, another way to say it, and I sometimes say to like my students, and mostly it's for myself. Isn't that the way? But then when I make a mistake or I do something that I'm like, oh, I didn't want it to go that way, to just, like if someone's trying to learn, like if a child is trying to learn something new, you don't tell them, oh, I can't believe you did it that way. Like, that's wrong, wrong, wrong. Then the child learns that, okay, I'm just not going to try. I'm just not going to do. And I think as adults, we need to like let go of that perfection. Like, we're still learning. I hope we're still growing. I hope the moment that we figured it all out, then I guess we've reached enlightenment. So we don't need to worry about it anymore. But
so I'm going to finish probably with a couple of tips each,
because
for the people who watch, we have a tendency to speak for 2 hours nonstop.
That is true.
So like, I think my last tip is, and again, it's really based on what you're saying. First of all, really, again, practice with an open mind. And that means sometimes exploring and making things that are not orthodox, but knowing the base. So really getting the understanding of the basics and the foundation. But just practice and see what works for you. And when you find it, don't get attached to it. Keep on practicing, because it might change.
Yes, that's a big one.
That's a big one. And the last thing, reach out. So there is no shame on not knowing anything. Some people, I have mentors, Reiki, meditation, body movement, and they all enrich my practice. So when you really have a core practice, sometimes reach out from experts of related and build upon that from different. So whatever you do, if you do 3-4 practices, start finding the common core.
Yes.
Just build and ask for help, ask for guidance, but then also judge it by yourself, right? You don't want to, but just, again, people are there to mentor you and to help you. So if you're stuck, again, this is a practice, you may do mistakes, but you're really stuck, just reach out for help. That's the best advice. And it's, for me, it was life-changing, really being vulnerable enough in martial arts to like, I need guidance. And again, look for respected people, just do your homework, but ask for guidance and mentorship. And also, when you reach a point, offer that mentorship to other people as well.
I love that you said that. Yeah, I echo that, and I'll add to that having a level of discernment and being able to like, I believe that a good teacher is a guide and someone that helps you find that and figure that out in your body, and like that empowerment and that embodiment. inside you, that it's not, and I feel like sometimes you say this too, when you start out a class for people that don't know essentially what Reiki is and what energy is. I love how you say it. You're like, I'm not giving anything to you. You're not giving anything to me. There's no bad juju. But I think to take that one step further is that the teachers, you are included in that have been the most impactful for me are the ones that have taught me to stand in my own authority and to trust myself, and have been guides so that when there's that moment of like, I don't understand, I can feel that I can ask that question and that I'm supported. But essentially, like, each individual is the one that's doing the work. And I'll say, like, add to that in terms of a tip in terms of body and things that are helpful. I like to work a lot in subtlety, and sometimes I wonder if I give too many cues to like, feel this and this and this and this. But I think that if you can grant yourself the patience that you would grant a loved one or someone else that's trying to learn something new, and give that to yourself, you'll be able to go so much further, because you're going to have the willingness to look at things that are uncomfortable, and to look at something that you don't understand, and to keep returning to it, to be like, okay, maybe like today I couldn't really feel the lower half of my core, but I bet tomorrow if I try again, it's like, this is the thing. It's a practice. It's a meditation practice. It's a yoga practice. It's a core practice. We forget the emphasis on the practice. We're just kind of like, oh, I want to get to that state of wherever we're going. And I think that that's very yogic too, is like surrendering the outcome, let it be more about being in it.
Love that. And I discovered something. If you move to the right and you get to this, look, we can do, and I can, no, a little bit more.
This way?
Just go like this. Stay there, and I can give you a kiss. Well, you can see that I'm actually starved for human connection, right? So,
aren't we all?
No, it's just, I know some talks are very serious, but I think the last thing I'll say is, like, we have to take ourselves seriously, but not too seriously. And I'm talking again within the balance. So we have to feel empowered, but sometimes we just have to kiss through a screen. It's, so joyfulness is important. So
yes. Joyfulness is hugely important. Yes.
And when I see Kelly in person, she's going to have such a big hug that she'll be.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be massive.
And now I can use my muscles. I'm going to crack your ribs. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. You can use the chat box. I will type my Instagram, and you can type yours, Kelly, as well.
Yes, thanks for keeping
so that if you have any questions, again, I mostly can guide you in terms of meditation tips, Reiki practice. I offer a bunch of services. I also love the subject. So sometimes I just chat for hours, so stop me. Kelly, describe what you do, which is magic.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I lead group classes, corporate classes, but I've also really been enjoying the one-to-one duet work and small group classes where we can really get into the subtleties, and taking this integration of understanding a more mindful practice with the core integration. So the Pilates, the core, the breath work, and being able to explore in that way. So if you have more questions about it, please reach out to me on the Instagrams. I think we're both there in the chat so people can see. Oh yes, Nathalie, talk about your books.
The last thing I say, like, if you're really interested in your Reiki practice, there are 2 books available. You can go to my author page on Amazon. One is Illustrated Guide, and it's the core of what I practice, which is Japanese practice, which is, again, a lot of awareness and meditation. The other one is called the Reiki Handbook, and it's a more Western chakra-based book. They're both, again, very nice. They're just different interests. So check us out. Thank you so much. Reach out with questions. Thank you for connecting. This week will be available in replay. So if you're joining with a replay, kisses too. I believe the Facebook Live was a fail because I probably didn't press all the buttons. So I'll be posting this if it didn't, or maybe it's just I'm not checking.
Being the technology wizard of this call, Nathalie.
I failed, but then again, we softened into the.
That's right. Oh, it's like learning right now in real time, just softening into that.
So big kisses. Oh, thank you.
Evan. Oh, wow.
Thank you for joining.
Oh.
Take care, and we're gonna end the broadcast. This is always the most awkward face, so put your awkward face.
Or not.